Hi, my name is Octavio Solis, and I'm here working with Cal Shakes in conjunction with Word for Word on a project called The Pastures of Heaven, which is titled after The Pastures of Heaven, a novel of short stories by John Steinbeck that he wrote in 1932 and which we are adapting for the stages of Cal Shakes. I'd like to talk about our little trip to Salinas. We went on a field trip days, and we got to spend some time on the farm. Chris Bunn gave us a tour through his farm, showed us how to hoe a little bit, and demonstrated some of his farming techniques, talked a little bit about the history of the farm. And then after that, we went into this area called El Corral de Tierra, which is the actual valley that John Steinbeck used as a model for his Pastures of Heaven. And it's amazing how the land has changed, the geography has changed, and still remained essentially the same. We went to the Firehouse Recreation Center. This was on the following day, and we interviewed a few people. We did a few story circles with a few people, seniors that were there, who were arrivals, recent arrivals as far as I could tell on some of them, like recent meaning like in the 60s, 70s, and who came there for their own dreams, to pursue their own dreams, some to find labor, some to get away from bad marriages or oppressive households, but had settled quite happily in Salinas. The more we probed into them and to their stories, the more we found that they had their own little tragic stories to tell about living there in this area. It's I can see why John Steinbeck focused so much of his literary efforts on that little region. It's just rich with story. It's filled with so much drama. It was on the second day that we decided to go into the actual place that we felt was the real Corral de Tierra. But we had to go through a kind of checkpoint. We snuck in behind another car through a gated community, which is what a lot of Corral de Tierra has become. Which is ironic because in the book, John Steinbeck predicts that the Corral de Tierra, the Pastures of Heaven valley itself, was so desirable that already people were projecting, his characters were projecting that it was going to be a fantastic place for large homes for the privileged and the rich, and that it would also be wonderful land for a golf course. And that's exactly what the Pastures of Heaven turned out to be, a gated community. It was quite a road trip, but one we felt was quite useful for our purposes. It was part research, but it was also part connection. We really went out there to make some contacts with the community. Yes, with organizations like the Steinbeck Center, but also with directly making contact with the people who live there. We feel it's very important to develop community relations because they will have some impact on the work in some way, some direct way and some indirect way, and in some cases it might even have a spiritual effect on the work. And we have to keep our antenna out and open, our ears open for that kind of contact. We feel it's very important and crucial to the development of this project.
The people of the Pastures of Heaven recoiled from Cubismo after the death of his wife and his two boys. Stories of the callousness during the epidemic grew to such proportions that eventually they fell down of their own weight and were nearly forgotten.
But when at term opening, after his 6th birthday, he did not appear.
John Whiteside, the clerk of the school board, wrote a letter to Junius Maltby.
I hadn't thought of it. I guess you'll have to go to school.
I don't want to go.
Well, I know. I don't much want you to go either.
Okay, what we're going to do is, everyone's going to take a piece of narration. You're going to talk with energy as narrators. Right? Not to talk as characters yet. And every time I assign you your line, you're going to come into the group. So the first person who comes in is going to come in here. The second person is going to join in. Third person will join in. Clumped. Not a straight line. Clumped. But the idea is to address and engage and invite. Right? Does that make sense?
The other actors?
No, the audience. Take the audience. And it's not just these folks, think this way out there, all right?
The people of the Pastures of Heaven recoiled from Julius Maltby and his after the death of his wife and his 2 boys. Stories of his callousness during the epidemic grew to such proportions that eventually they fell down of their own weight and were forgotten.
But although his neighbors forgot that Julius read while his children died, they could not forget the problem he was becoming.
Here in the Fertile Valley, he lived in fearful poverty,
While other families built small fortunes, bought Fords and radios, put in electricity, and went twice a week to the moving pictures in Monterey. Or Salinas,
Look at the person who's talking sometimes.
Pardon? Yes, oh, okay. Went to the moving pictures in Monterey or Salinas. Julius degenerated and became a rabid savage.
The men of the valley resented the good bottom land, all overgrown with weeds, his untrimmed fruit trees, and his fallen fences.
The women thought with loathing of his unclean house with its littered dooryard and dirty windows.
Both men and women hated his idleness and his complete lack of pride.
For a while, they went to visit him, hoping by their neat examples to drag him from his slothfulness.
But he received them naturally and with the friendliness of equality.
Go back, to, you 2 go back, and the last 3 go back, not Ron. No, Patty, that's right, Jerry Lynn, and Dominic. Okay, what is Dominic's line?
The women thought with loathing?
Yes. Both men and women, that line will only be Dominique and Jerry Lynn and Patty. No, not all groups exist. The only group things later on. Make sense? So let's take it from, if you don't mind. Let's take it from, yeah, that's right. Take it from Ron's line, the men. Awesome. Yeah, invite when the person talks, engage, allow them to bring them in. Bring them in their body, let their voice kind of, yes, there's
The men of the valley resented the good bottom land, all overgrown with weeds, his untrimmed fruit trees, and his fallen fences.
The women thought with loathing of his unclean house with its littered dooryard and dirty windows. Both men and women hated his idleness and his complete lack of pride. For a while, they went to visit him, hoping by their neat examples to drag him from his slothfulness.
But he received them naturally.
Go.
But he received them naturally and with the friendliness of equality.
He wasn't a bit ashamed of his poverty nor of his rags.
Gradually, his neighbors came to think of Julius as an outcast. No one drove up the private road to his house anymore.
Do the line before, do that before. On the line of the group, come forward. Okay? So let's go back. Gotcha.
He wasn't a bit.
He wasn't a bit ashamed.
He wasn't
And
a
also, just speak normally when you speak to this group. It will create noise. Don't yell over each other. Rules that we always forget, right? Yeah. Go ahead.
He wasn't a bit ashamed of his poverty nor of his rags.
Gradually, his neighbors came to think of Julius as an outcast.
Sorry, no, Ron, you said something. No, I think that was something different. Once again.
He wasn't a bit ashamed of his poverty nor of his rags.